if you're like me, you probably think of Art Deco more or less the way people tend to think about Zen or string theory. You kind of know what it is, but you're just as glad nobody ever asked you to say exactly what. Is Art Deco the same thing as Art Moderne? Futurism? What about Bauhaus? Well, here's Anthony Robbins to tell us it's all right, it's not our fault. Because as he explains on the first page of this wonderful book, no architect or designer ever actually set out to do Art Deco. Hardly anyone had heard of Art Deco until 1966, when somebody dreamed up the name for a show in Paris that was looking back at 1920s design from a distance of 30, 40 years. Our jury goes through hundreds of books every year, and we discuss literary merit, relevance to current issues, and so on. But what we really love is to come across a book that helps us see the city in a way that feels fresh and new. What Tony Robbins tells us with enormous, contagious enthusiasm is that New York's Art Deco buildings, above everything else, perfectly embody the energy, ambition, and optimism of New York in the 1920s and 30s, when it was becoming the metropolis of the world. The luxury skyscrapers were the big deal, of course. The Chrysler Building, the GE Building, and their cousins. The designers embraced an aggressive, ebullient vertical style that had room for influences ranging from Art Nouveau and Southwest Indians to King Tut, and above all, the New York City construction codes. But it turned out that many of their geometric polychrome design elements also lent themselves very nicely to the much cheaper commercial buildings and six-story apartment houses that were going up by the thousands all across New York in the 30s. The result is that once you've been alerted to them, you can find surprising and delightful specimens of Art Deco around almost any corner. And Tony Robbins is amazingly good at both the alerting and the finding. There's something else too. His book is strikingly friendly. On page after page, he in effect takes you by the elbow and carefully shepherds you to exactly where he wants you to be. Here we are on page 123, for instance. We've just visited Bloomingdale's, and we're about to go to 57th Street and see another Art Deco masterpiece, the Fuller Building. Walk west along East 59th Street to Park Avenue. Cross Park Avenue and continue walking west to Madison Avenue. Cross to the west side of the avenue, then turn left and walk south on Madison 2 blocks to East 57th Street. Cross to the north-southwest corner of East 57th and Madison, then turn around and look catty-corner across the intersection at the northeast corner. And then there's a picture, in case you got lost, and you need some guidance. And then, for good measure, he throws in a photograph of the sculpture and the big sign in the building, which is the reason probably that the name has never been changed down the decades. By the time the name was coined in 1966, Robbins says, Art Deco had fallen into almost total disrepute. Architectural historians didn't respect it, and for the rest of us, it was a depressing relic of the Great Depression. In the 70s and 80s, Art Deco was rediscovered and re-embraced to the point where some people suspected it was just another passing fad. Robbins cites a New Yorker cartoon from 1984. A typical William Hamilton couple of a certain age are in what seems to be a shop full of deco lamps and furniture and statuary. And the man is saying, "Do you realize we're living through the second time people got tired of Art Deco?" You can get that on a mug, by the way. The point, though, is that Tony Robbins has not gotten tired of Art Deco, and we think you won't either after you've spent some time in his company. But I'm going to leave the last word on this book to an old friend and a great friend of the New York Society Library, Christopher Gray, who said, "If you thought you knew Art Deco, as I did before I read New York Art Deco, then buy this book and be surprised." So for giving us such a friendly guidebook and alerting us to some overlooked pleasures of the urban streetscape, I'm very happy to present the New York Society, the New York City Book Award to Tony Robbins.
didn't realize it was going to be the directions that we're going to get. Thank you all to the jurors, to the library. I had no idea this was going to happen. I also have to thank John Taranek, who's here somewhere. I saw him before. There he is. The legendary John Taranek, who drew the maps for the book, really as a favor to me, and made it so much easier to use. I wish Randy Juster were here. He did the fabulous color photos in the middle of the book that are just, they're knockouts. They really are. And you know, I was in graduate school in London 40 years ago, and I picked up a book about New York's cast iron architecture by the legendary, again, Marco Gale. And I showed it to one of my fellow students who was British, and she looked at it and she said, "Oh, I guess, you know, New York's becoming an historic city." Okay, I think we've always been an historic city, but I think what she really meant was we were beginning to realize that there was history here. And when I came back from graduate school, I wanted to find everything I could, and there was nothing. There were very few books. There was the AIA Guide, which had gone out of print, the first edition. There was the Columbia Historical Portrait of New York. There was the Bicentennial Project. There were some Dover reprints. And that was pretty much it. So here we are 40 years later, and the jury looked at 140 titles about New York just this year. We are an historic city, and it's a wonderful thing. So thank you so much.